Between 1850 and 1900, American territory went through a brutal transformation. It wasn't just expansion to the west. It was a time of survival, where the rules were written on the spot and often erased in blood. Historians spent years digging through old records, forgotten court documents, and letters that were never supposed to survive. What they found changes everything. We're going to reveal 27 facts that stayed buried for decades. Subscribe to our channel to keep watching videos like this. Number 1. The agency that hunted outlaws. Did you know that before the FBI even existed, a private agency already had file cabinets with photos of criminals? Alan Pinkerton created that in 1850, and man, it changed everything. Those detectives developed methods the federal government wouldn't adopt until decades later. We're talking organized files, tracking suspects, and a network of informants spread across the entire country. Jesse James knew that pressure well. The Pinkertons never managed to catch the outlaw alive, but they made his life a living hell. The James Younger gang was forced to live more and more hidden away, always looking over their shoulder. The interesting thing is that the same agency that hunted bank robbers also protected powerful businessmen and politicians. Some historians point out that the methods weren't always within the law. Let's just say the line between the good guys and the bad guys got kind of blurry sometimes. Number 2. The weird gold and diamond scam. In 1872, two smooth-talking guys, Philip Arnold and John Slack, said they'd found diamonds and rubies in Colorado. The news spread fast, and pretty soon bankers, politicians, and mining big shots wanted to buy that land. The trick was simple. They buried fake stones at the site. When investors showed up and found gems within the first few digs, they were convinced it was real. Everyone wanted in before it ran out, but then they brought in Clarence King, a respected geologist, to take a look. He realized the stones didn't match anything from that area. Some even had cut marks, something that just doesn't happen in nature. The scam fell apart, and the con men disappeared with a fortune. To this day, nobody knows how much money they got away with. Number 3. Bass Reeves, the legend Hollywood may have copied. Do you know the Lone Ranger? Well, there's a theory that says the character was based on a real man. Bass Reeves was born enslaved, ran away during the Civil War, and hid out with native tribes in Oklahoma. There he learned their languages and customs. After the war, he became the first black federal deputy west of the Mississippi. The guy arrested more than 3,000 outlaws over his career, some of the worst criminals of the time. He worked for Judge Isaac Parker, known as the Hanging Judge. And here's the interesting detail. Reeves rode a white horse and had a native partner. Sound familiar? Many historians believe his story inspired the famous masked hero. Number 4. Calamity Jane. Have you ever heard of a woman who carried a gun, wore men's clothes, and joined military expeditions in the American West back in the 19th century? Well, Martha Jane Canary did all that. Born in 1852, she was orphaned while she was still a kid and had to figure out how to survive. Little by little, she learned to hunt, ride, and shoot just as well as any man on the frontier. What's interesting is that nobody really knows where the truth ends and the legend begins. Newspapers back then loved running stories about her, but they mixed facts with rumors. Some accounts said she worked as a scout for the army. Others claimed it was all made up. What we do know is that Calamity became a celebrity while she was still alive, taking part in Wild West shows. She died in 1903 and asked to be buried next to Wild Bill Hickok, another famous gunslinger of the time. Number 5. The Colorado Cannibal. Alfred Packer headed out on an expedition in the Rocky Mountains in 1874 with 5 companions. Months later, he came back alone. And here's where the story gets weird. He was well fed, even after a brutal winter that would have killed anyone. When authorities found the bodies, they discovered marks that told a disturbing story. Packer said it was self-defense, and that he only did what he did to survive. The jury didn't buy that version. The judge was so outraged that, according to local legend, he said Packer had eaten all the Democrats in the county. He spent decades in prison, and the case became one of the most talked about in the Old West. The question nobody could answer: was he a cold-blooded killer or just a desperate man doing the unthinkable to stay alive? Number 6. The first big train robbery. Did you know that before Jesse James, there was a gang that basically invented the train robbery? In 1866, the Reno brothers did something nobody had tried before. They stopped a train on the Ohio and Mississippi Railway and stole about $13,000. To give you an idea, that was enough money to buy an entire farm back then. What makes this story interesting is the planning. These guys studied the schedules, knew the routes, and knew exactly when the guards would be distracted. It wasn't luck, it was strategy. The problem is, their success set off a domino effect. Other outlaws saw it worked and started copying it. Jesse James, who became famous years later, learned from what the Renos did first. The gang didn't last long. People got so furious that they formed vigilante groups. The Reno brothers' end was violent, but the method they created became a trademark of the Old West. Number 7. Johnson County War. In 1892, Wyoming turned into a battlefield. Big cattle barons decided they were going to handle things their own way. They accused small ranchers of cattle rustling, but here's the thing: with zero proof. They hired more than 50 gunmen from Texas, put together a list of 70 people to take out, and set off on a straight-up death mission. They burned down houses and executed men in front of their families. The small ranchers organized and surrounded the invaders. Things got so bad that the president himself sent in Army cavalry to step in. And you know what's the most infuriating part? The rich guys who set it all up were never arrested. Not a single one. Money bought the justice system's silence. That episode shows how the law worked when you had power. It just didn't apply to you. Number 8. The invention of barbed wire. Before 1870, the American West was open land. Cattle could roam free for endless miles. But that created a serious problem. How could a small farmer protect what was his when thousands of head of cattle were passing through his land? In 1873, an Illinois farmer named Joseph Glidden changed everything with a simple idea: metal wire with sharp points. It was cheap, and it worked. All of a sudden, anyone could fence off their property. Sounds like a good thing, right? But here's the dark side. The famous Texas cattle drives came to an end. Cowboys lost jobs. And worse, wars started over those fences. People died fighting over who could fence off what. The Free West turned into a board divided by wire. A twisted piece of metal changed who ran that land. Number 9. Belle Starr, the Queen of Outlaws. Did you know that one of the most wanted criminals of the Old West learned to ride and shoot before she even turned 15? Belle Starr was born in Missouri in 1848 into a middle-class family. But the Civil War changed everything. After losing her brother in the conflict, she took a path nobody expected. She started getting involved with outlaws, including members of the James Younger gang. She married a Cherokee man named Sam Starr, and together they ran horse theft operations in Indian Territory. Newspapers back then loved writing about her, always armed and dressed in flashy clothes. In 1889, when she was only 40, someone ambushed her and shot her in the back. The killer was never found. Some people suspected her own son. That mystery turned Belle into a legend that still lives on today. Number 10. Stagecoach Mary, the mail carrier. Nobody dared mess with. In 1895, a woman who was nearly 5'11" and over 200 pounds landed a job no black woman had gotten before, delivering mail for the United States Post Office. Mary Fields was around 60 when she started this journey in Montana. Think about it. A black woman, alone, crossing wild country with heavy snow and temperatures that froze everything. She carried a rifle, a revolver, and a bottle of whiskey to handle the cold. Locals say Mary never missed a day of work. When the snow got too deep for the horse to make it through, she strapped on snowshoes and went on foot. The men in the area learned fast not to mess with her. They say one time she knocked out a guy who disrespected her. Mary worked until she was 70 and became a legend while she was still alive. Number 11. The Ghosts of Bodie. Did you know there's a town in California where messing with any object can ruin your life? Bodie popped up in the 1870s when gold was found in the mountains. In just a few years, more than 10,000 people were living there. It had everything: 65 saloons, gambling houses, and a whole lot of trouble. Records show there was at least one violent death a day. But the party ended fast. The gold ran out, and fires destroyed almost everything. People just left and abandoned their stuff. Today you can walk the streets and see plates still on tables, medicine still on shelves, everything the way it was left more than 100 years ago. And here's the weird part. Visitors swear they hear footsteps and voices when nobody's around. The park gets letters from people returning rocks and objects because they had bad luck after taking them. Coincidence? Maybe, but nobody wants to risk it. Number 12. Cochise County War. Did you know the most famous shootout in the Old West lasted only 30 seconds? Yep. Back in 1881, at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona, the Earp family and Doc Holliday faced off against the Cowboys gang. But here's the detail the movies don't tell you. That was just the beginning. The real bloodbath came after. Morgan Earp was shot in the back months later. Wyatt, his brother, lost it and went after every single person responsible. The local sheriff, John Bean, was in deep with the Cowboys. So there wasn't any real law in that town. Ambushes became routine. Tombstone got a reputation as the most dangerous hellhole in the territory. And to think it all started with half a minute of gunfire. Number 13. Billy the Kid and his vandalized grave. Did you know Billy the Kid's headstone has been stolen twice? He died in 1881, shot by Sheriff Pat Garrett in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. He was only 21, but he was already the most talked-about outlaw in the Old West. The problem is, the story didn't end with his death. The grave became a tourist spot, and the Outlaws' fans started causing trouble. They vandalized the place so much that today the headstone is secured with iron chains. But here's the interesting part. Some people swear Garrett shot the wrong man that night. They say Billy got away and lived in hiding for decades. Crazy theory? Maybe. But why do so many people still question that death more than 140 years later? Number 14. The Legend of the Lost Dutchman's Gold. Did you know more than 600 people have already died looking for a mine that might not even exist? In the Superstition Mountains in Arizona, there's a mystery that's been messing with Americans for over 130 years. A German immigrant named Jacob Waltz supposedly found a massive gold mine back in the 1870s. The funny thing is, Dutchman means someone from the Netherlands, not Germany, an error that caught on and stuck. Waltz died in 1891 without giving up the exact location. Since then, treasure hunters have been tearing through those dangerous mountains. The Arizona government has recorded dozens of suspicious deaths in the area, including unsolved decapitations. Geologists say the local rock formation makes gold there unlikely. Even so, every year, hundreds of people ignore the warnings and head into that treacherous terrain. The question that won't go away: why do so many people risk their lives for something science says is impossible? Number 15. The Gambling Madness. Did you know that in Old West saloons, a guy could lose an entire farm in a single night of cards? Yep, it happened more than you'd think. In those smoky places, Canada Bill Jones showed up, a con man so skilled he became a legend. He ran the three-card trick so smoothly that even war vets fell for it. His favorite line? "It's wrong to leave money in a fool's pocket when we can take it first." What's interesting is that those saloons work like informal business hubs. Cattle deals, land sales, and political agreements happened between one hand of poker and the next. Doc Holliday, the same guy from the OK Corral shootout, was trained as a dentist, but he spent more time at gambling tables than fixing teeth. One turned card could mean a fortune or a bullet in the chest before sunrise. Number 16. Scams in Ghost Towns. Have you ever heard of the Old West's ghost towns? Well, when the mines dried up or the railroads changed routes, whole towns would be empty overnight. But here's the part not many people talk about. Those abandoned places became perfect ground for clever con artists. The scheme worked like this. Shady guys would show up claiming they'd found gold or silver in a reopened mine. They'd flash nuggets they bought somewhere else and even make up famous geologists to sound legit. Hard-working men, dreaming of changing their lives, would invest their savings. And once the money came in, the scammers vanished into the horizon. Since the law barely reached those remote areas, almost nobody got caught. Greed and hope went hand in hand back then. Number 17. Cherokee Bill. This guy was mixed, an African-American father and a mother with Cherokee roots. Crawford Goldsby was born in 1876, and before he was 18, he was already deep in serious trouble in Indian Territory, what we now call Oklahoma. Robberies, shootouts, deaths. Federal marshals put him at the top of the region's most wanted list. What really stands out is how young he was. Cherokee Bill pulled off crimes that would make seasoned gang veterans look like amateurs, all while he was still basically a kid. Historians still argue about what turned a boy into a killer so young in that lawless land. When they finally caught him and set his hanging, he was only 20. And here's the part nobody forgets. On the gallows, he looked at the executioner and said, "Hurry up with it. I don't have all day." Number 18. The Thunderbird of Arizona. Have you ever heard about the giant bird of Tombstone? In 1890, two cowboys swore they'd killed a huge flying creature in the Arizona desert. The thing was so big they needed an entire barn just to hang the body. The local newspaper ran the story, and supposedly there was a picture of the thing. But here's the problem. Nobody's ever found that darn photo. It vanished like smoke. So what was it really? Some say it was a surviving pterodactyl. Others bet on an indigenous legend that came to life. And there are people who swear up and down they saw that image in some old magazine but can't remember which one. What's crazy is that thousands of people claim they remember that photo. Scientists call that the Mandela effect, when lots of people remember something that might have never existed. The truth? Nobody knows. But the question still stands. Where did that image go? Number 19. Charley Parkhurst. You look at this figure and think, just another Old West cowboy. But there's a story behind it that left everyone totally shocked in 1879. Charley Parkhurst spent decades driving stagecoaches along the most dangerous roads in California. We're talking brutal work, where outlaws could show up at any moment, and one mistake meant plunging into a canyon. Charley built a reputation as one of the best in the business, someone who stayed calm even under gunfire. When Charley died, the doctor made a discovery that turned the small town upside down. Charley was a woman. She'd lived her whole life hiding it just to be able to work in a world that wouldn't accept a woman driver. And here's the detail that really blows people away. Records show Charley voted in an election in 1868. That was more than 50 years before American women won that right. A woman voting when nobody even knew she was a woman. Number 20. The Ice Blizzard and the Great Die-Up. Did you know a single winter basically brought the cowboy era to an end? Between 1886 and 1887, a series of brutal storms swept across the Great Plains in a way nobody saw coming. Temperatures dropped to 40 below zero in some areas. The cattle, used to grazing out in the open, just had nowhere to go. Ranchers who had thousands of head woke up weeks later with almost nothing left. Some lost 90% of their herds. Historians estimate that between 300,000 and 500,000 animals died from freezing or starvation during that period. The losses were so massive that investors from the East, and even from Europe, walked away from the business for good. After that tragedy, ranchers realized they couldn't just leave cattle out all year anymore. Fences started popping up everywhere. The old way of moving herds across open range ended right there, buried under all that snow. Number 21. Marfa lights, ghostly lights. Here's something that'll make you think. Out in the Texas desert, near a little town called Marfa, people have been reporting strange lights in the sky since 1883. That's right, decades before cars were even around there. Cowboys were the first to notice these glowing orbs that show up, disappear, and seem to dance along the horizon. The University of Texas looked into it and never landed on a definite answer. Some people talk about natural gases from the ground, others say it's mirages, but no single theory fully fits. The craziest part is the county took it so seriously they built an official viewing spot along the highway. Every year, thousands of people go out there, spend the night staring into the desert, waiting to see something science still hasn't really explained. Number 22. The Chinese in the West. Did you know that almost 90% of the workers who built entire stretches of the Transcontinental Railroad were Chinese? Yep, my friend. These guys did the back-breaking work that few Americans wanted to do. They came by the thousands during the gold rush, but ended up blasting tunnels through mountains with dynamite, risking their lives every single day for lousy pay. When the railroad was finished, many opened laundries and restaurants in San Francisco and Seattle. And what was the thank you? The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, a law that basically said, "You're not welcome here anymore." It was the first time the United States banned an entire group of immigrants because of where they came from. A story a lot of people would rather forget, but one that helped build this country. Number 23, Buffalo Bill's Show in Europe. Did you know millions of Europeans formed their idea of the American West by watching a circus-style show? Yep. Buffalo Bill took his troupe across the Atlantic and became an absolute sensation. The guy had a real nose for business, and he knew Europe was dying to see real cowboys, shootouts, and Indians in the flesh. It got so big that Queen Victoria herself showed up to a performance in London in 1887. They say she was blown away. What's wild is that a lot of people over there had never seen an American in their life, and suddenly they were watching reenactments of Old West battles. The show mixed reality with exaggeration, and that was exactly the trick that worked. Buffalo Bill wasn't just selling entertainment. He was exporting an image of America that stuck with generations of Europeans. Number 24. Outlaws' Final Rest. Did you know famous outlaws were buried with their revolvers fully loaded? It wasn't some silly superstition. These guys really believed they might need to defend themselves even in the afterlife. Whiskey, poker cards, knives, everything went into the ground with them. It got so serious that treasure hunters started digging up bodies to steal those relics. Picture it. People digging in the middle of the night in isolated graveyards, risking finding a skeleton hugging a colt. 45. Some of those guns showed up decades later at auctions, sold for a fortune. Collectors would pay any price for an object that once belonged to a real gunslinger. Today, cemeteries like Boot Hill in Arizona still get thousands of visitors who want to see where those men are buried. The question that won't go away: do all those graves still hold their buried secrets? You think you know the Old West? Think again. Behind the shootouts and the cowboys, there was a world of bold con artists, women who faced down outlaws without backing off, and Chinese workers who built railroads under brutal conditions. Stories Hollywood movies never really told right. Want to know the truth? Drop a comment saying which fact surprised you the most and share it with the crew.